haven't lived that one yet. You think I need that?
Okay, you can use it if you want to. You can hold it, you can fiddle with it, you can put it in your pocket. What's your best call to action?
To make people happy.
That's not a call to action.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've been trying to figure that out.
Come stay over the treetops. Which is more profitable for you, to join the Clue events or to come stay at the you call it an Airbnb or just a B&B?
It's a B&B.
Okay.
Let me cook for you anytime.
Okay, we'll go with that.
So for 13 years, from the time I was 5 till the day I left, after the day I turned 18, I peeled potatoes, I cooked meatloaf. My mom had, she was a home, she had older people in her home. My dad built 7 rooms in the back with its own dining room. And I was the first one up every morning at 4 a.m. Cooked breakfast for anywhere from, well, our family had 7 people in it. I was the middle child, oldest girl. So I cooked breakfast for these people, made lunches for my brothers and sisters to go to lunch, and I always gave my brother the heel because he was mean to me. I had to run to school to be there on time, and then I was the first one back home, started the supper routine. No, and I also didn't get to go to recess because I had to come home and serve the patients, as we call them, lunch. So that's what I did for pretty much 18 years, but I did love to do things, and my favorite time was on Sunday when my dad was actually home from work, and I got to watch Walt Disney, and every once in a while we got to play games. So, and the one thing that always broke my heart was when I was done with my chores every night, I had to get straight A's or I would have been in trouble. So I usually did my homework and read my things under my covers with a flashlight and maybe fall asleep about 2 to get up at 4 and start the day all over again. But I loved it when my dad was home and we played hide and seek, and I lived on 100 acres of land and you could never find me.
How much time does she have left?
About 5 seconds.
About 5 seconds. Okay. Do you want to record soon? You don't have to. It's just an opportunity. When I started doing this about 12 years ago, I didn't realize how much of what I do in the storytelling is under inspiration. So if you ask me in 10 minutes to tell somebody's story again, the odds that I remember are almost 0. So even when I do 3-hour sessions with my coaching clients, we do it on Zoom. I do not allow you to use AI to document it, but I will let you record it so you can go back and play it for personal use so you can hear those stories again. You ready? It's 4 a.m. Maybe you remember the time to make the donuts. So I didn't make donuts, but I peeled potatoes and I made the breakfast every day. I was the middle child, but the oldest daughter, and so a lot of responsibility for being the second mom in the house fell on me. For 13 years of my life, I got up, I made breakfast. But it wasn't just our family of 7. My dad got this unction, for whatever reason, to build extra bedrooms around our house, and we always had other people that I also had to feed. Sometimes over a dozen people that I was making breakfast for. And I would do breakfast and I would feed them and then I would rush off to school. Sometimes running to school after making lunches for everybody. Oh yeah, my brother got the heel every time because he was a heel and he deserved it. But I would run to school and be late, and sometimes I would have to leave and be home to cook again, and I didn't even get to stay and have recess or play with the other kids after school. I lived the life of a young adult all of my young life. Till I was 18 and I left home and did my thing on my own. But I learned a lot about taking care of other people, and I learned a lot about caring for other people, and I learned just how much it means to invest in other people through the kitchen. And sometimes the most powerful conversation you can have is over a plate of bacon. Sometimes the most powerful experience that you can have is just staring each other in the eye over a cup of coffee. And so I found myself now, after all the things that I've done in my life and all the accomplishments and everything being, pretty much done, I can chill wherever I want to. So I built a cute little place that looks over the top of the trees. And my greatest joy in life is when somebody comes and stays with me. I don't charge them much, but I love to get up and cook them breakfast. Complete strangers. So if you like the idea of hanging out, looking over the trees, over the cliffs, over the lake, come stay over the trees. Come stay at my B&B. I'll make you breakfast. We'll chat over coffee. That's just who I am. It's who I've always been. Oh, I made him leave. Yes. That's the second one. They're dropping like flies. Sheep already left. Anybody know this guy? Warren Buffett, one of the richest guys in the world. He said the most important degree I have is the Dale Carnegie course. Think about what that means. This guy, Dale Carnegie, speakers who talk about what life has been taught them never fail to keep the attention. How many of you have been in a meeting where somebody talks and they drone on and you're like the Visine commercial? Bueller, anyone, right? It's so dry. I watched a guy one time, he came in, he was, I won't say the university, but he was a professor at one of the local universities. And he came to a group about this size and said, I'm going to teach you the power of communication. And he opened his talk by saying, today I'm going to tell you a story. It doesn't really have anything to do with my talk, but I think you'll be fascinated by it. And 9 minutes later, he stopped talking. And he looked at us all, and he said, well, I guess that story wasn't as fascinating to you as it was to me. But it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm going to say today anyway, so let's move on. And I looked to the guy to my right, and I said, can I get my 9 minutes back? That's 9 minutes of my life. I could have done something better with my life. It wasn't fascinating, it wasn't valuable, it wasn't emotional, it wasn't evocative. But people who talk about what they've lived through in their life never fail to keep the attention of their audience. How about this one? Brian Tracy. Anybody know the name Brian Tracy? He's been around for a minute. Long in the tooth. He's been doing sales training since he was in his 20s. When you speak about something you passionately care about, you'll be more comfortable. See, when you step up here and you're nervous, how many of you would agree the reason you're nervous is because you're afraid you're going to forget something? Raise your hand. Yeah. How many of you forget your own story? That's just kind of oxymoronic, right? I mean, I lived through it. How can I forget? Now, the question might be, how can I better massage that story? What things could I leave out or tie together better to make that story more useful for my audience? But you don't forget the details of the story. One of my heroes, I started studying John Maxwell when I was on active duty at 20 years old. To take people from inspiration to action, you got to put together the right words at the right time. Everyone communicates, few connect. It's one of John's books. If you haven't read it, I dare you to get it. You can improve your value 50%. Let's see, that would be your net worth value, your value as an employee, your value as a parent, your value as a friend, just by learning public speaking. So this one is not in the video reel because it just happened, but I competed in the World Championship of Public Speaking with Toastmasters in 2011, made it to the semifinals out of 35,000 people. I competed in the Great American Speak-Off with Pete Vargas and Grant Cardone in 22 and made it to the finals, the semifinals of that one as well. And I think there were 120 of us out of the 50-something thousand that competed at the very beginning. 2 reasons. Oh, goodness, I have to prop it up further. See if I can make it taller so it's not cutting off the bottom. Forgive me for my backside. It's the only side I have. There we go. Some people say it's the best side. Okay. 2 reasons to tell better stories. Number 1, tell better stories because it improves your internal and external communications. How many of you lead a team of 2, 5, 10 people? Okay? When leading a team, would you agree that sometimes the biggest challenge is you say something and you feel like they're not listening at all? You ask them to do something and they don't take action at all? And you realize you've spoken, but they haven't listened. What if maybe you spoke, but you didn't communicate? Or maybe you communicated, but you didn't connect. Let's just say for a second, our YMCA team over there said, we're bringing in 15 summer interns. And all these summer interns, they kind of got their own drama going on, boyfriends, girlfriends, high school graduation, blah, 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 blah. But as they're coming in this summer, we're going to partner them with kids from single-parent families. We're going to partner them with kids who maybe have come from a tragic past. We're going to partner them with kids that maybe everybody else has turned their back on and said, I can't help you. How do you express to those summer interns the value of their presence there to be compassionate and loving with the kids that they're about to be working with? You tell that story. I know how they feel. I know what they wanted because that was me. Does that hit home with anybody? Does that resonate? Okay, the second reason to tell better stories better is to build up your team. So when we talk about these stories that are internal, how many of you have a story that you play in your own head? You walk by the mirror, you think of some stupid thing you did in the past, and you think, ooh, I don't like you. Anybody? Is it just me? I spent 25 years addicted. I brought that into my marriage for the first 10 years. Can you imagine being the wife married to a porn addict? The fact that she stayed is by God's grace and her mercy. That's it. There's no way, it doesn't make any sense. But we're almost 30 years into this journey together, and together we use that story to rescue people who are suffering. And when people say to me, well, you just don't know what it's like to be a woman married to a man who struggles with that. You're right, I don't. I've never been a woman. But she has. I know what it's like to struggle. She knows what it's like to survive through it. Oh, by the way, you can add to that previously divorced and a rape victim before she married a porn addict. So don't tell me you've got a struggle she hasn't lived through. She'll walk with you through it. By the way, she talks once a year about the same amount you've heard today. For those of you who are quiet, what does that usually mean? If they don't talk, they listen. Okay, here's your 4 key questions. You need to write these down in your journal. This is the most important question when you're crafting a story that's going to be impactful. Who do I help? Anybody throw it out there. Who do I help?
Buyers and sellers.
Buyers and sellers. Who else?
Isolated.
Say it again.
The isolated.
The isolated. Who else?
Children.
Children. Who else?
Seniors.
Seniors. Who else?
The community.
Community. Okay? Let's add this caveat. Define your ideal customer. Because we all have customers, right? How many of you had customers you love to fire? Right? The ones that come to you and they're like, I want everything you offer. Can you do it for $1? No. Sorry. I work with a lot of nonprofits, but I don't choose to live that way. I like to pay my bills because they keep telling me to get out of your house if you don't pay the bill. Next key question. How do I help them? Describe the solution in one sentence. So somebody said, I help buyers and sellers. In one sentence, how do you help buyers and sellers?
I sell or help you purchase a home.
Okay. Yes, ma'am?
I've befriended them, find out what they really need, and not sell, but find what they want.
Okay. Somebody else? Connection?
Care.
Care. Somebody said, I help kids. Help them how? Give them things to do in a safe place.
See
Okay.
themselves in a different way.
See themselves in a different way. What else?
Build confidence.
Build confidence. Okay. So you've got to be able to describe that solution in one sentence. How many of you have heard somebody give their elevator pitch and it takes them 2 hours? Because they're kind of product vomiting every service and detail that they offer, and you feel like, oh my gosh, you know, is anything you just listed for me? Anybody been to the Cheesecake Factory? How long does it take between, I'll go get your drinks and be right back, and you going, I know what I want?
Too many choices.
Too many choices, right? How many of you been to Cane's? What do they offer? Chicken. Don't be asking for no mac and cheese. No. Oriental salad? No, not here. You're in the wrong place. Coleslaw, fries, chicken. What else? Toast and a drink. Sweet tea. Enough sweet tea to curl your toes. I just want to just call your Alzheimer's doctor now. Here's the toughest one for people to answer. What is the pain they're currently experiencing? The challenge for a lot of people is they want to say what they do in a way that feels like, I already have the solution for you, you don't have to tell me where your pain is. Have you experienced that? Somebody wants to sell you the product, the service. They want to tell you how wonderful what they have, the FBAs, the features, benefits, and advantages, right? They want to run through all of those wonderful things about how what they're going to provide for you is. But the question you're still wondering is, do you even get it, what I'm going through? Or have you just pointed yourself in my direction and went, she's got money, he's got money, she's got money, I'm going to get some. How many of you have ever dealt with a salesperson like that? Where you know from the beginning, they're just looking at you as dollar signs. There's no human connection there at all. They don't care. They just want to know, do you get a check? In fact, how many of you have been through an exercise like this, and the first thing they say, like one of my mentors, and I take him with a grain of salt, his name is Grant Cardone. He always says, there's never a question of, is there enough money for this project? The question is always, who's got my money? Who's got my money? Is it the loan officer? Is it the bank? Is it the next client? Who's got my, that's his question. I don't operate my life quite that way. Define your ideal customer's most pressing pain. Carissa did a great job of helping us to see through her story what the need of her ideal customer is. Now I'm going to throw a little caveat at you. This is not even in your notes. This is a bonus. This is a $2,000 training that I do. But I'm going to tell you, in your niche market, there are 5 markets in your niche market. Okay? And I'm going to separate 2 of those for you. Every niche market, you have an ideal customer. But in that niche market, you have the difference between the beneficiary and the benefactor. Which means, if I'm selling computers, and I go to a 16-year-old kid and I'm like, I have the fastest computer, it's got double video cards, multiple inputs and outputs, the greatest sound system, you can airdrop it right up to the screen or right to your television, it'll AirPlay with any device in the world, you can play video games until your face turns blue because the battery will never die. Drop it in your backpack, you don't have to worry about memory leakage, pull it out of your backpack, play a game, drop it right back in there and keep going, nobody cares, it's always ready. Every 16-year-old kid in the world is like, yes, that's the one I want. Is it fast enough to do first-person shooter games with 9 players online? Yes. Our grandma's going, can he do math? For God's sake, will he learn about history? Can he get on that Google thing and get the answers to his test questions? See, the teenager's the beneficiary. He's the one who's going to win from the product the way that he wants it. But grandma's the benefactor who's going to have to write a $3,000 check for that laptop. And when you ask the question, what is the ideal customer, you're thinking of the teenager who wants to use this computer for gaming. And if your sales pitch stops there, you miss the pain of grandma who's going, but will he flunk all of his classes? If he's going to be so wrapped up in those video games that he doesn't learn nothing. And so you've got to be able to identify the pain of your ideal customer, both the beneficiary and the benefactor. Now, in the rest of that teaching, I go on and talk about those cause-oriented investors versus the ROI investor. And the cause-oriented investor says, I just want to know whether I put in $2 or $10 million that the impact you promised me is going to be seen. I don't care if I ever get my money back. I just want to know you made a difference. That's why I'm putting my money in you. Anybody donate to the why? Why? Because they're doing a good thing. Even if you never show up, the money you're putting into what they're doing is because they're doing a good thing. You're cause-oriented investors. An ROI investor says, okay, so how many of those computers are you going to sell and how much profit is in it? You're selling for $3,000. If I'm getting $1,000, so if I give you $1 million, you have to sell 10,000 of those before I get my money back. Is that what you're telling me? What's your plan to sell 10,000 of them? And they don't care who you sell them to. They just want their money back. Ideal customer and the pain changes when you start talking about the niche market. Okay, here's another trick question. What is my proprietary process? So I'm going to keep using Carissa as an example because she's a great example. If I were to say, bring your kids to the Y and be a part of the events that we're doing, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Anybody have an argument with that? I mean, does it meet the expectations? Bring your kids to the Y and be a part of the events that we're doing. Who do you help? Kids. How? Bring them to the Y. Let them be a part of what we're doing. What have we missed?
How you help them?
How you help them? What about their pain?
Yeah, I was going to say the emotional context or the emotional.
The emotional context or the pain, right? And so, why do they want to come to the Y?
Find community.
Find community, find something better to do, keep them off of drugs, out of the streets, right? We don't want to see kids go to waste their life because they don't have connections or responsibilities or community. And so bring them to the Y to keep them off the streets and get them involved in programs that will redirect their life. Okay, so what are those programs that would like to redirect their life? That's where we get right here. Define your unique process. It's not just bring them to the Y so they can play. While that may be what they think they're doing, because the kids think they're getting the laptop, and grandma's going, no, honey, you're going to graduate from college. That's what I'm invested in. I'm going to send you to the Y to keep you off the streets, and while you think you're playing in the pool and doing nothing else, you're learning discipline and relationship and how to play nice with others. Because a single kid sitting at home when mom's up on meth and dad's in jail isn't learning any of that stuff. But when grandma sends them to the Y, somebody says, stop running on the sidewalk, you're going to get hurt. Wait, you care if I get hurt? I do. I do. Why do you care if I get hurt? Because I have a scar on the back of my head from falling on the concrete like that. I have one on the front of my head. You know those little whistle things? Woo! You blow it, it unrolls and pops back in? And we used to have a Shetland pony, and I hit him right in his woo! With one of those things, and he kicked me right in the forehead. I still have the scar on my head from that. Okay, so here's what that looks like when it's all put together for you. I help your ideal client who describe the pain they have. I help kids who are the sons of single mothers, always finding themselves in trouble, to stay out of trouble and find a purpose in life by engaging in the games that we play at the Y, or engaging in swimming lessons, or engaging in flag football, whatever it is, right? You should, in your business, be able to put this together. And this is the most powerful call to action, single statement at the end of any story that you can tell. If you can say, this is what I do, this is who I help, this is how I help them, this is what that solution looks like when the pain is overcome, and this is the process that I use to do it. Now, how many of you heard the stories that were told today? Some of them actual event-based stories, and some of them just a little bit of a resume, but you would agree that starting there instead of a resume dump connects you better with the human you're dealing with. Would you agree with that? I mean, that's my philosophy. I hope people agree with it, because otherwise, I'm going to be broke.
Can I ask you a question, Loren?
Absolutely, sir.
Expand on the third one a little bit.
Sure.
I guess the verb is there, describe pain as overcome.
Okay?
Help me
So
understand
let me give you an
describe pain
example.
as overcome.
I help talented sales associates. This is one of mine. I help talented sales associates who fear missing quotas and losing their job close more sales. So right now they're dealing with the fear, that's their pain. I'm gonna lose my job because I haven't made enough sales this month. Signed up enough memberships, moved enough products, moved enough houses. How many of you have been under the pressure of I just didn't close enough deals last month? I've been an entrepreneur since 2009. And we have had those months that are $15,000 months, and we've had those months that are $15 months. And the fear of losing everything because you just didn't make it, and looking back and being honest and going, okay, I'm doing something wrong, what is it? So I help talented sales associates who fear missing quotas and losing their job to close more sales. How? By telling better stories better. Through my 4-step Storypower process. And the first step of that is story selection. Well, that's what we've been doing this morning, is finding the ideal story that allows me to connect with the person that I'm in front of. Now, here's the truth. Remind me your name again. I read it off the card, I don't remember.
Jason.
Jason. If Jason and I run into each other on the street, or David and I run into each other on the street, or the chief who left me, were to run into each other on the street, we can start with some really basic conversations because we're guys about the same age. Now, the chief and I both know that we're both Air Force veterans, and so we've got a whole different level of conversation. I know that Sue is a veteran as well, and so her work on the flight line is very similar to my work on the flight line. But see, I don't know any of that about Sister. Here's what I know about Sister, though. Just in the little bit of time that I've been around her. She's a gracious woman. She's a kind woman. She's a revered woman. You would not want to get on the bad side of Sister, because she'll never tell you, but everybody else in town's going to come ask you for it. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
I've only been around 9 months. I'm figuring these things out fast, right? But here's what I also know about Sister. My grandmother died at 92. At 92, she was a beautiful woman that people still sought out just to sit and talk to her. Ask my wife. My wife would sit with my grandmother for hours. At 85, she was still solving puzzles. It was just the grace of her persona that caused people to want to be around her. Sister's like my grandma in that way. Not saying she's old enough to be my grandma. I'm just saying I see people that are talking to her, and they come up to her, and when they walk within distance, their arms go out for their hug, and their face lights up with a smile. I have never not seen that as long as I've known her. I don't have to know her personal life. I don't have to know anything else about her. What I know is people enjoy being in her presence. So if I were to have a conversation with her and say, hey, I'd like to, let's do business together, I might start with, you know, my grandmother was a woman much like you. Just grace and presence, and everybody adored her, and everybody loved her. They loved being in your presence, and I see that in you, and I honor that in you. So all of a sudden, the story about my grandmother becomes the connection in the relationship. Now, every one of you have a story like Carissa's story, or a story like my grandmother, and I can tell you stories about one of the most rich experiences my wife and I had was early in our marriage when all of our kids were still elementary age. I pissed my dad off beyond belief by reconnecting my grandmother and my grandfather, who'd been divorced 48 years at that time. We sat at Vaughn's Catfish in East Texas and listened to them talk about when they met and what their dating relationship was like, and how my dad was born, and how their relationship happened, and all of these rich moments from 50 plus years ago. And my grandmother drove 90 miles from Dallas to Tyler 3 times a week to provide in-home care for my grandfather, who she'd been divorced from for over 50 years, because they were still friends who could find common love in each other, even though they hadn't been married in 5 decades. Connection is a powerful thing. And not everybody has that kind of connection, but when you can build that kind of connection, you can do business with people because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. Here's another one of mine. I'm hoping these give you an example to kind of pull through your own. I help professional speakers who fail to give referrals, results, or callbacks. How many of you have been to a training seminar and you walked out thinking that was an absolute waste of my time? How many of you are going to walk out of here and say that? Good. It's just Chris. Okay. I know where to find you because I know where to find Holly. So we got about 10 minutes left. So I help professional speakers who are not getting results, they're not getting the callbacks, they're not getting the referrals. Nobody says, you've got to have them come and speak at your event. I help them build greater rapport with their audience. How? By connecting. The first part of connecting is the story. Well, where do you get the story? From your own experience. How many of you have heard somebody tell a story and about halfway through you realize, I've heard that before? And they deliver the punchline and you're like, oh yeah, you sucked at that. I've heard that story before, it was much funnier, right? I always gave him the heel. All of you laughed out loud. I dare say if you had coffee in your mouth, you would have spit it on the person in front of you. Because nobody was expecting that line. But that's just so Sue. Okay, I can tell the same joke, I can tell the same story, but the emotion that's in that truth, that's not mine, that's hers. But selecting the story to tell, looking at the person in front of you going, okay, how can I connect with Patty better? What do I recognize about, what do I observe about Patty? How can I connect with her in a way that is brand new? Let me try this one. You ready? I pulled up the gas pump in my SUV. Have you heard this? Pulled up the gas pump in my SUV and there's a little minivan on the other side. I'm filling up the tank. That takes a minute. The driver gets out of the little minivan on the other side. She's perfect. Perfect little hair, perfect little nails, perfect little shoes, perfect little outfit. Cute as a bunny. She starts putting the gas in the car and I realize there's no wedding ring, but there's a ridge on her finger. It's like, well, that's interesting. And my eyes scan forward through the window, I see two toddlers strapped in car seats. Cheerios everywhere. Hair everywhere. One of them has shoes on the wrong feet, the other one has no shoes on, but the socks don't match. And I look back to this cute as a button young lady, and she looks at me, and I see her in her eyes, and she's got tears streaming down her face. And I said, I was raised the only son of a single mom, and then I married one. Can I pray for you? Now, I don't know if she forgot her wedding ring at home and she was about to call her husband and go, I forgot my ring again. Will you bring it to me? Because my wife does that on a regular basis. Hands are swollen, took the change, did the dishes, whatever, right? 30 years, you're not stealing her from me. I'm pretty convinced. I don't know if maybe she got in a fight with him because she came home and found him with somebody else and she threw the ring in his face and ran out the door. Took the kids and left. I also don't know if maybe she's on her way to the hospital to identify the body. Here's what I do know. From the time I was 9 until today, my mother was divorced when I was 4, widowed when I was 9, never remarried. And I've watched my mom live her life, get her butt kicked by life on a daily basis, doing everything she could to keep the world together as a single mom. And then I married a woman who was a single mom with a redheaded 5-year-old. Yes, I have a redheaded stepchild. And every day I watch her getting her butt kicked by life. And I look at this woman who's standing there putting gas in her car, and I realize, whether it's for the next 5 minutes or the last 5 days, she's getting her butt kicked by life. And I don't have to know everything else. I recognize what I've lived through in her. You see that? Does that connect with that? At all? Even a little bit? Total stranger. I don't think we've ever met before, have we? But if a story like that can help connect, then a story like that allows you as a leader. I help leaders who fail to get cooperation from their team. Anybody fail to get cooperation from their team? You feel like you people just don't get it, right? To connect with their team, build trust, and gain greater buy-in by telling better stories better. How many of you, as a team member, have had a leader who came to you and told you a story about their past experience and you went, okay, so you do understand what I'm going through, right? It changes everything. It changes the whole dynamic. So what I want you to understand is when it comes to, this is kind of the crowning achievement, if you will, of tell better stories better. The person that I had in the studio this morning, we kind of did that little exercise in 31 minutes. The whole show was 31 minutes. Grown man in tears. Not for the same reason that Carissa was. or that any of you were emotionally moved. But the truth about our stories is sometimes we just have a hard time reconciling ourselves with them. Anybody else besides me live with that self-loathing of all the mistakes you've made? And sometimes you look in the mirror and you're like, I hate you. That was me. I spent the better part of our marriage, the first 10 years at minimum, telling her I'm fat and unlovable. And you made a mistake by choosing me. Until the day she sat me down and said, no, God sent you as a gift to me. I forgive you for everything that you've done, and I need you to see you the way I do. That didn't just save our marriage, that saved my life. Because if she'd walked out on me then, if she'd actually found somebody better and moved on, I probably wouldn't have come home at all. I help people, individual team members, who struggle with self-esteem, fear, or lack of confidence to believe in themselves, discover their gifts, and maximize their potential in life and in work by telling better stories better through a Storypower process. Identify the stories, select the stories that need to be told. Work on those stories. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to a video because we're almost out of time and I don't want you to miss this. This is a four-step process, by the way: storycraft, stagecraft, connection, and narrative. It's the golden rule of storytelling. Make it a memorable moment, not a memoir. Nobody cares about your whole life story. Nobody cares about your resume. In the longer talk, I tell you why that's true and what the alternative is. If anybody's ever heard me talk about the drill bit, then you know what I'm talking about. Anybody heard me tell the story Pop and Stretch? So sad we're running out of time. This is something that you have to know, though. How many of you told a story and when you were done, you walked away and went, I should have said, go ahead, all of you put your hands up. You know it's true. You've told a story at some point, you made a sales pitch, you've argued your point against somebody else, and when you were done, you're like, God, I knew I should have said that. If I just remembered to say that, I would have won this argument, right? We've all been there, right? Practice makes... No, it doesn't. Practice makes permanent. Which means if you practice it wrong, game time you're going to do it wrong. I'm going to show you an example of what I believe to be the most diligent rehearsal. Not because I've seen the rehearsal, but because you couldn't do what you're about to see if you didn't dedicate yourself to working on the script, the story, the pace, and the whole thing. You ready? Don't you do that to me.
Really? This thing with their head, where it will begin to move side to side as they're speaking. Now, at first when you notice it, you think, oh, he's flat wrong. He's got to keep getting a snack. Get a tip for Peter! Now, when they start speaking, their head starts moving. And I noticed this. The guy is checking us into the hotel, and he's really cool. He's like, listen, if you have any problems at all, okay, you call the front desk, you press 0, and we'll send somebody to your room to help you. Whatever you need, we got it for you right here, okay? It's very good. Now, one thing I noticed is the more they talk and the more excited Indian people get, the more the head starts to move around. Somebody at the hotel yelled out to the clerk, that's fluffy. And the guy was like, oh my God, I don't believe it. Oh my God, I don't believe it. This is so crazy. Oh my God, fluffy, fluffy, fluffy. Even crazier than that is that the mouth is actually connected to the neck. When the mouth stops moving, the head stops wherever the mouth left off. And when you see Indian people talking to each other, you can see it. Okay, let me tell you something. Okay, okay, hold up, wait, hold on, wait, okay. Like if you're Indian and you stutter, you are so screwed. Somebody stop him! I'm not gonna lie, you guys. When I first saw this happen, I thought it was hysterical. I thought it was funny. But then I started thinking about it. Head movement is just a form of expression. No matter where you live in this world, people express themselves in their own unique way, whether through facial expressions, hand gestures, body movement, extra words. Everywhere you go, things are different, and that's just how they express themselves in India. Now back to the whole Indians-Mexican thing. That is something else that we share in common with Indian people. Head movement. Now some of you in the building tonight are like, stupid, we don't have head movement. Yes, we do. It's a little different. See, with Indian people, the head movement is side to side. Mexicans, our head movement is front to back. The difference between that is that with Mexicans, we have to be very, very upset in order for you to see the head movement. Otherwise, you can't tell. With Indians, it's all the time. Oh, today is such a nice day. It is such a beautiful day today. I am so happy. It's very nice, very good. Oh my God, I can't believe it's so nice. It's such a great. Mexicans, when we're mad, that's when it comes out. For non-Latinos, hey, trust me, you cut off a Mexican in traffic, see what happens. That's funny. I don't know why the black people are laughing. You guys take it all. Oh, no, you did it. Oh, yeah. I hit a bell. I hit a bell. I made myself dizzy doing it.
All right, now how many of you think you could walk on stage and deliver that even if you had the script? No.
Really?
I mean, you've got to have the timing down. You've got to work on these things. To deliver a story like Carissa did, the emotional pause was powerful. And it would be whether there were 50 people in the room or 5,000 people in the room. But one-on-one, that much pause, people disconnect, they step back, they take it as an excuse to move on. Or how many of you have been engaged in a conversation with that person that if you take a breath, they start talking? I thought you were done. Or win, win, win. Here's your number one win, and this will be the last thing I'll say and I'll let you go. By the way, we do have a handout for you that has that little chart. I help blank who do blank to do blank by blank. But it actually has the words in there so you can write over it and make copies of it. It also has contact information on there if you need team training for your group. Win, win, win. The first win we saw demonstrated today when Carissa told her story, and everybody moved with that emotionally because everybody can go, to some degree, that was my story. That's the first win. When everybody looks at you, like, your story is like my story. And you connect with them, and they get it. The next level win, though, is when they come to you, and this has happened to me, I can't tell you how many times. The first time I competed with the story, Daddy's Girl, we would actually stand at the end of the line, the receiving line after the competition, and my daughter would stand next to me. She's beautiful, little blonde, just captivating. She would stand next to me, and people would walk up and then turn to her, and I was like, whatever. Nobody wanted to shake my hand. They all wanted to hug my daughter. And when I added to that story, the story about my wife saving our marriage and saving my life, the three of us would stand at the front of the room, and they would all come to the room, and they would look at me like, how dare you? And they'd go to my wife, and they'd go to my daughter. I'm like, I'm just a guy telling the story. I got no part in this. But the connection, second level win, is when they come to you and they go, let me tell you my story because you're not going to believe how much they're alike. So the first win is when they connect with you, you're like, your story moved me. The second level is when they come to you and they're like, your story is just like my story. And they feel compelled to tell you their story. The third level win, though, is when you attach that story to a call to action and they do what you ask. Buy from me. Do business with me. Have coffee with me. Come have breakfast with me. By the way, we almost called you this morning, but I didn't have your number because for whatever reason, our entire neighborhood is out of water. I think they had a water break or whatever. So this is my shampoo in the sink hair. You like it? I did okay, right? Lots of hairspray, a little bit of soap. You just got to be able to make that connection when people realize how you can help them and that you recognize their pain because you've been there. They want your help. They want your solution. But you've also got to be able to articulate what that looks like. So give them a call to action. I help people do X by Y through Z. If you can't clearly articulate that part of it, they're not going to do business with you. There's not going to be a transaction. Has this been helpful training today? I know I've taken up all of your time, and we are all done. I encourage you to go to storypoweracademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and See if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the elite speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm Loren Norris with Storypower Academy. I look forward to